My name's Paul Dragu, and I'm the communications director for the John Birch Society. I do a litany of things, and they all relate to communications. I am also the co-author or the writer of a newly published book by Western Islands, Defector, a true story of tyranny, liberty, and purpose. I wrote a summary in one sentence. Defector is a true story about a man who risked everything to escape communist tyranny and to find freedom. It is a true story. It's a story about a friend that I have who's a little older, and the year that I was born, he was actually planning to defect from Communist Romania. He wanted to escape the tyranny, and so he planned to defect under the cover of night one December in 1980. And he got caught. He was in a prison, a Yugoslavia prison, and eventually he ended up in the West. And that's a whole long story about how all that went down. It's kind of a thriller. They almost freeze to death. They almost, who knows, you can always get shot when you were doing these things. But, he discovers freedom, and he discovers a real freedom, which is essentially, a freedom that cannot be taken. I was born in Communist Romania, and I lived the first 8 years of my life there. My parents did a very good job of shielding us from it, but Communist Romania was a totalitarian state. It was ruled for a large part by the dictator Ceausescu. As a totalitarian state, they did things like they had informants and they watched people, and they tried to assassinate people they didn't like, including a relative of mine who was an activist, and they tried to run him off the road with the car and things like that. People they would cut off the electricity, they would cut off gas willy-nilly. The government did that. They had bread lines, they had kerosene lines. There certainly was an abundance of anything, and it was as best as it could. It was a makeshift surveillance state. By the time we got out of there, they had 4 children, and essentially, the way my dad, in simplistic terms, says that the reason he tried so hard, he tried defecting twice, and he got caught both times, and he served prison terms. But the reason essentially is because he wanted a better life for his kids. Life was hard, and as Protestants, we were also discriminated against. So even in the corporate world, or in life and with jobs and things like that, it was really hard to move up because Protestants were discriminated against. You certainly couldn't be part of in government. As there's only so much high you can go, because to be part of the party, the Communist Party, you had to be an atheist. But even kids were discriminated against at school. The teachers discriminated against Protestant kids and things like that. So for us, it was especially hard because not only were we living in a totalitarian state, but we were part of a group, a sect, a demographic that was especially, that the government was especially hostile to. It may be cliche, and you hear this from lots of people who came from other totalitarian or broke states, but America is the last. It's always been a beacon of hope. And when people talk about going to a place where there's freedom, they talk about America, and the principles that made America are proved in the fact that ever since its inception, people have been coming here by the millions because our founders concocted this superior form of government. And when it works the way it's supposed to, there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling for what can be accomplished in freedom and prosperity. So it's an understatement, but it's hugely important. I don't know how else to say it. It's like we're the last stand, and it's the greatest form of government that's ever been created. To get a copy of my new book, Defector, a true story of tyranny, liberty, and purpose, go to shopjbs.org.